Okay, let's come back to the figure we had opened in the last podcast. This is on the impacts of climate change observed in many ecosystems and human systems worldwide. So these are not projections. These are recorded in evidences already, historic impacts, and the report looks at historic impacts, near term, so 2021 to 2030 or so, middle term 2040 to 2060, and longer term 2080 to 2100. And as we have said before, the uncertainties in the projections in the shorter term and longer term can be more model uncertainties in the earlier part and scenario uncertainty in the latter part. We have already looked at scenarios that were used in AR6, which were basically a combination of representative concentration pathways and shared socioeconomic pathways. So shared socioeconomic pathways can be combined with various RCPs, and that's how it was done. Okay, so here, observed impacts of climate change on ecosystems. We are looking at changes in ecosystem structure for terrestrial, freshwater, and ocean, species, regime shifts in terrestrial range shifts. Range shift is very different than regime shift. Species, range shifts in terrestrial, freshwater, and ocean, and changes in timing or phenology for terrestrial, freshwater, and ocean systems, with confidence levels integrated with these color schemes, where dark blue refers to attribution being high or very high in terms of its confidence that human-induced climate change was responsible for the change being noticed, and the purplish color is medium, gray color is low, and when it's an open circle, evidence is either limited or insufficient, and there are places where the results are not applicable. So impacts to human systems in panel B, we'll come back to in a minute, is looking at negative, where the adverse impacts are increasing, or plus minus, where increasing adverse and positive impacts occur together. I just wanted to read it so that when I flip to the next slide, we'll still remember it. So here, looking at global impacts in ecosystem structure, range shifts, and phenology across the board. Globally, there have been changes in the ecosystem structure, ranges have shifted, phenologies have changed, and we have high or very high confidence in these things in terrestrial, freshwater, and ocean ecosystems. Over Africa, again, ecosystem structures are clear, terrestrial ecosystem range shifts are very clear. There is not enough evidence for freshwater systems, but Lake Victoria and so on have been looking at lots of impacts already, even evolutionarily or selection wise. And in the oceans around Africa, again, there is a high confidence in range shifts, and when it comes to phenology, either data is not enough or the confidence is low. Similarly, for Asia, across the board, some high and medium confidences and some low confidences, and some regions like the range shift in freshwaters in Asia, in the ocean, is not so obvious from data, or the evidence is not enough. Australasia, you can see the range of high or very high confidence in various impacts like structure, range shifts, and phenologies. Europe, again, across the board, very high confidence in all the changes that are being looked at, obviously related to industrial activities, high emissions, coastal populations, exploitation of fisheries, and so on. North America, the same thing, high and very high confidence in human impacts, climate change impacts attributable to human impacts, human activities across the board. Small islands, which are highly vulnerable, again, have high and very high attributable changes in ecosystem structure and phenologies, with terrestrial ecosystems and ocean ecosystems also changing substantial changes. Arctic, across the board, with some low confidence in, some medium confidence in freshwater structure and phenology. Antarctica, obviously not enough data there because of the harsh conditions, but there is medium confidence in terrestrial ecosystem changes and ocean ecosystem changes, range shifts in terrestrial ecosystems and ocean ecosystems, and also phenology changes in terrestrial ecosystems, and so on. Okay, so I want to read all of them, but you can see that all ecosystems, structures, phenology, and ranges have been affected with various levels of confidence attributable to human influence. If we look at observed impacts of climate change on human systems, we look at water scarcity, agricultural and crop production, animal and livestock health and productivity, fisheries yields and aquaculture production. This is in the water scarcity and food production impacts. In terms of health and well-being, we look at infectious diseases, health, heat, malnutrition, and other, mental health and displacement, so climate-driven displacements or immigrations, which can be internal or across international borders, impacts on cities, settlements, and infrastructure instead of in terms of inland flooding, associated damages, flood storm-induced damages in coastal areas, damages to infrastructure, damages to key economic sectors. So here we are looking at minus, where again confidence levels are high, medium, or no data, not enough evidence, and so on. And when we have negative sign, it means the negative impacts have worsened. For example, globally, agriculture and crop production has suffered, and we can say that with medium confidence, and heat, malnutrition, and other things have globally worsened, and we can say that with very high confidence. And same for mental health and displacement, same for all these cities, settlements, and infrastructure impacts, except damages to key economic sectors. There is negative impacts, but the confidence is medium. So looking again at all the regions: Africa, Asia, Australasia, Central and South America, Europe, North America, small islands, Arctic, cities by the sea. So these are really vulnerable in many cases, especially in India, North America, Europe, Asia, anywhere you go, Mediterranean region, and mountain regions or montane regions. So very comprehensive in terms of the evidences that have been collected in terms of reported studies, peer-reviewed publications, and so on. And diligent work is done in assigning confidence limits as well. Global and regional risks for increasing levels of global warming. I will come back to it in the next podcast, just so that this is a slightly different topic, and it has details that are probably best put together in one podcast rather than splitting it across two podcasts. So if you remember, in AR5 we had seen a global map showing all regions of the world, also looking at physical systems, human managed systems, and biological systems. And the main message there also was that all parts of the globe, including the polar regions, were affected in all sectors, like physical climate system, ecological or biological systems, and human managed systems, with various levels of confidences in terms of attribution to human induced climate change impacts. This is depicted a little bit differently. For various reasons, the conventions get changed, but the message still remains that there is hardly any good news across the board in terms of human and ecosystems on land, ocean, and freshwater, and well-being and health and agricultural production and so on. So let's come back and add a little more details in the next couple of podcasts. Okay, the report is available online. You can read. It's very detailed and sometimes a little hard to read because there are so many things with high confidence, medium confidence, low confidence, lack of evidence, and so on and so forth. So I'm just trying to summarize the key figures, which can be easier to listen to when somebody delivers it to you. Okay.